Welcome to Bright Spark YouTube channel. Today we are discussing about the per unit system and the advantage of per unit system. Here, what is the per unit system? Per unit system is the ratio of the actual value to the selected base value. That is the per unit system. Percentage and per unit is equal to per unit into 100. In that equation, you get it per unit is equal to percentage by 100. For examples, 20% means 20 by 100 is equal to 0.20 per unit. 8% means 8 by 100, that is equal to 0.08 per unit. Suppose 125% means 125 by 100, that is equal to 1.25 per unit. Why do you use the per unit system? Per unit system is used for different type of voltages, that is 11 kV, 130 kV, 220 kV and 400 kV, etc. By using actual values, the calculations are made easy. Here is the advantages are to eliminate the transformer turns ratio. Second one is fault analysis make easy. Third one is load flow studies are makes easy. Fourth one, different rating of equipments are easily comparable by using per unit system. Fifth one, per unit impedance of a transformer is the remain the same primary and secondary and the both side is same when by using the constant basis are used. Next, third topic is base quantities. Only two independent base quantities are required for current system. That is base power and base voltage. Base power is the base MVA, base voltage is the base kVA. Fourth one, base voltage. In transformer, you will select one voltage as a base. The other side of base voltages are calculated by using a transformer turns ratio. Okay, for example, the transformer is you will take 220 bar 130 kV transformer. If HV base is 220 volts, LV base is 130 kV. This is by using a transformer turns ratio. Next one is fifth one is base current. For a three-phase system, IB is equal to base power by √3 into base voltage. All of you know that power equation is P is equal to √3 VL IL cos phi. Here is the cos phi is the constant. So base current is calculated from the power and voltage equation. Okay. Sixth one, base impedance is obtained from the square of the base voltage by base power. All of you know that generally power is equal to V square by R. So from that equation, ZB is equal to VB square by SB. For example, you will take the one transformer 100 MVA and 220 volts. From that equation, base impedance is obtained by voltage square means 220 into 220 by power is 100. So 484 ohms is the answer. Seventh one, base admittance. Base admittance is the reciprocal of the base impedance. Next one is base power. Base power, generally three-phase transformer, in three-phase system, base power is equal to S is equal to √3 VL IL cos phi. In this per unit system, cos phi is constant. So power is equal to √3 VL IL. Generally, you select a transformer in base power is 100 MVA, 50 MVA, 10 MVA like that. Then per unit quantities of voltage, current and impedance to observe cheddam. Voltage per unit is equal to actual value voltage by base value, that is called VPU is called V by VB. Next, current per unit is equal to I by IB. Impedance per unit is equal to Z by ZB. Reactance also X per unit is equal to X by ZB. Reactance resistance is equal to R per unit is equal to R by ZB. ZB is the base impedance. 10th one, the manufacturers are transformer impedance is measured as a percentage. So for example, 8% means that is converted into per unit. 8 8 percentage means 8 by 100, that is equal to 0.08 per unit. Okay. One, change of base formula. This is the most important in this topic. If in case base is changes, z per unit new is equal to z per unit volt into power new by power volt into voltage volt by voltage new volt square. Here all volt terms are comes just like a V shape. Easily remember that. This is the memory trick. Next, in transformer is per unit impedance is both side is same, primary side and secondary side. Here is the base voltage is selected based upon the transformer turns ratio. Here is the base MVA. Base MVA is same for both primary and secondary side. Next is third, generator reactance conversion. For example, generator reactance is 0.2 per unit on 50 MVA. Given find 100 MVA is అంటే 50 MVAకి వచ్చేసి 0.2 per unit ఇస్తే 100 MVAకి ఎంత ఉంటుందంటే 50 is equal to 0.2 అయితే 100 is equal to some x అనుకుంటే అప్పుడు మనం x is equal to 0.2 into 100 by 50 క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేస్తే 0.4 per unit వస్తుంది అన్నమాట. అలాగే నెక్స్ట్ యాక్చువల్ ఇంపిడెన్స్ ఫ్రమ్ పర్ యూనిట్. ఇంపిడెన్స్ కూడా మనం క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేయాలంటే యాక్చువల్ ఇంపిడెన్స్ అంటే మనకు z per unit is equal to యాక్చువల్ వాల్యూ బై బేస్ వాల్యూ. ఆ ఫార్ములా ప్రకారము z is equal to z per unit into z base. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ 0.2 per unit ఇస్తే బేస్ ఇంపిడెన్స్ వచ్చి 40 ohms ఇచ్చారనుకోండి, అప్పుడు మనం z యాక్చువల్ వాల్యూ ఎట్లా కావాలంటే 0.25 into 40, that is called 10 ohms is the answer. Advantage of a per unit system. Advantage means calculation are very simple. It reduces complications, errors. Transformer turns ratio repeated. Next one, fourth one is different rating of equipments or comparison is easily, and also widely used in load flow analysis, symmetrical fault analysis, unsymmetrical fault analysis, stability studies. These are the advantages. Disadvantages are selection of proper base value is essential. ఇక్కడ వచ్చేసి బేస్ వాల్యూ సెలెక్ట్ చేయడం అనేది వెరీ వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్. నెక్స్ట్ వన్ ఈజ్ per unit values alone do not indicate actual magnitudes. ఇక్కడ కొన్ని వచ్చేసి కొంచెం కాన్స్టిట్యూన్స్ తీసుకోవాల్సి వస్తుంది అన్నమాట. థర్డ్ వన్ ఈజ్ బిగినర్స్ మే ఇనిషియల్లీ ఫైండ్ ది కాన్సెప్ట్ అబ్స్ట్రాక్ట్. ఓకే, వన్స్ అగైన్ revision the all important topics. First one is per unit value is equal to actual value divided by base value. Next one is two important base quantities are in per unit system. Two important quantities are required, that is base MVA, base kV. Next one is ZB is called VB square by SB, that is SB means base power. Fourth one is base current. How to find out the base current? IB is equal to base power by square root of base voltage. Fifth one, transformer impedance remains the same in both side of primary and secondary, that is in the per unit value. Next, sixth one, base voltage changes according to the transformer ratio. ఇక్కడ వచ్చేసి బేస్ వోల్టేజ్ వచ్చేసి ట్రాన్స్ఫార్మర్ రేషియో ప్రకారం బేస్ చేసుకుని చేంజ్ చేయొచ్చు అన్నమాట. నెక్స్ట్ సెవెంత్ వన్, బేస్ MVA is generally kept common throughout the system. Once we selected base MVA, that is the for entire calculations. Eighth one, per unit impedances are dimensionless. Per unit impedance, per unit system without dimensions. Ninth one, the per unit system is mainly used for fault calculations and load flow studies and symmetrical fault analysis, etc. The per unit value of any quantity is defined as per unit value కావాలంటే మనకి ఏంటంటే actual value divided by base value, that is B is the answer. Which two base quantities are sufficient to determine all other base quantities in a three-phase system? ఆ రెండు రిక్వైర్మెంట్స్ కావాలి per unit system లో కాన్స్టెంట్ గా అనుకున్నాం. అదేంటంటే బేస్ వోల్టేజ్ అండ్ బేస్ పవర్. B is the answer. Base current is the generally all of you know that P is equal to root 3 VL IL. From that equation, here is B is the answer. Fourth one, if actual impedance is equal to the base impedance, the percentage impedance is ఇక్కడ వచ్చేసి యాక్చువల్ ఇంపిడెన్స్ వచ్చేసి ఈక్వల్స్ ది బేస్ ఇంపిడెన్స్ అయినప్పుడు పర్సంటేజ్ ఇంపిడెన్స్ ఈక్వల్ టు ఎంత ఉంటుందంటే సేమ్ వాల్యూ కాబట్టి న్యూమినేటర్ డినామినేటర్ దట్ ఈస్ ఈక్వల్ టు 1. హియర్ ఇస్ సి ఇస్ ది ఆన్సర్. విచ్ ఆఫ్ ది ఫాలోయింగ్ అండ్ అడ్వాంటేజ్ ఆఫ్ ది పర్మనెంట్ సిస్టమ్? పర్మనెంట్ సిస్టమ్ యొక్క అడ్వాంటేజ్ ఏమిటంటే ట్రాన్స్ఫార్మర్ యొక్క టర్న్స్ రేషియోను మనం ప్రతి క్యాలిక్యులేషన్ లో యూజ్ చేయాల్సిన అవసరం లేదన్నమాట, ఎలిమినేట్ చేసి. హియర్ ఇస్ ది ఏ ఇస్ ది ఆన్సర్. సిక్స్త్ వన్, ద పర్ యూనిట్ ఇంపిడెన్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎ ట్రాన్స్ఫార్మర్ ఈజ్ జనరల్లీ సేమ్ ఫర్ బోత్ సైడ్స్ అన్నమాట. ప్రైమరీ సైడ్ సెకండరీ సైడ్ పర్ యూనిట్ ఇంపిడెన్స్ అనేది కాన్స్టెంట్ గా ఉంటుంది అన్నమాట. హియర్ ఇస్ ది బి ఇస్ ది ఆన్సర్. విచ్ క్వాంటిటీ ఈజ్ యూజువల్లీ సెలెక్టెడ్ యాజ్ ఏ కామన్ బేస్ ఇన్ పవర్ సిస్టమ్ స్టడీస్? ఇక్కడ వచ్చిన వాటిల్లో మనం వచ్చేసి ఏది కామన్ గా సెలెక్ట్ చేసుకుంటామంటే బేస్ పవర్, దట్ ఈస్ బేస్ ఎంవిఏ ఈస్ ది ఆన్సర్, దట్ ఈస్ ది బి. యాక్చువల్ వోల్టేజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు ది 220 kV. యాక్చువల్ వోల్టేజ్ 220 kV ఇచ్చారు. ద బేస్ వోల్టేజ్ ఇస్ ఆల్సో 220 kV. బేస్ వోల్టేజ్ 20 kV ఇచ్చారు. దీని ద పర్ యూనిట్ వోల్టేజ్ ఈజ్ 220/220 V. That is the one is the answer. Here B is the answer. Ninth one, the per unit impedance is widely used in. Per unit system is mainly used in power system analysis. Here A is the answer. 10th one, base impedance in a three-phase system is. Base impedance calculate cheyalante all of you know that P is equal to √3 VL IL cos phi. Here cos phi is constant. So from that equation IB is equal to VB square by SB. Here B is the answer. One, base current in a three-phase system is. Base current calculate cheyalante IB is equal to SB by √3 into VB. That is the answer. Then like P is equal to √3 VL IL cos phi. From that equation IB is calculated. So here is the C is the answer. 12th one, a transformer line has an actual impedance of 20 ohms. Actual impedance 20 ohms. Base impedance is 40 ohms. The per unit impedance, actually per unit impedance is actual value by base value 20 divided by 40, that is called 0.5. Here B is the answer. 13th, a generator has a reactance of 0.2 per unit on its own base. If the same base values are used throughout the system, its per unit reactance becomes, here is the remains base value and వచ్చేసి actual value is same. So is the B is the answer. The main advantage of the per unit system in transformer calculation is the turns ratio need not be related from one side to another side. అంటే టర్న్స్ రేషియో క్యాలిక్యులేషన్స్ లో ప్రతిసారి తీసుకోవాల్సిన అవసరం ఉండదు. That is the B is the answer. 15th one, the per unit impedance of a transformer on the HV side is 0.1 per unit. What is the per unit impedance on the LV side? Here in transformer, both side per unit impedance is same. That is the B is the answer. 0.1. Primary side is 0.1. Secondary side also 0.1. The 100 MVA 11 kV system has a base voltage of 11 kV. ఇక్కడ వచ్చేసి పవర్ ఇచ్చారు, 11 kV సిస్టమ్ లో 11 kV వోల్టేజ్ ఇచ్చారు, బేస్ కరెంట్ కనుక్కోమన్నారు. జనరల్ ఫార్ములా ఏంటంటే బేస్ పవర్ డివైడ్ బై √3 into base voltage. From that equation you will find out 5.25 kilo amps as the answer. Here the answer is B. 17th one, a 100 MVA 220 kV system has a base impedance of. ఇక్కడ పవర్ ఇచ్చారు, వోల్టేజ్ ఇచ్చారు, మనం వచ్చేసి బేస్ ఇంపిడెన్స్ కనుక్కోమన్నారు. దానిలో వచ్చేసి ఫార్ములా ఏంటంటే ZB is equal to VB square by SB. From that equation you will find out 484 ohms is the answer. Here C is the answer. 18th one, the per unit value of a resistance is obtained from the R actually by R base. Here B is the answer. Which quantity changes from one voltage level to another in a power system? Here is the base voltage is changes. Here B is the answer. Next, 20th one, the change of base formula for a per unit system is Z per unit nu is equal to Z per unit volt into S nu by S volt into V volt by V nu whole square. That is the formula. So here A is the answer. This is the very important formula. One, a transformer has a 10% reactance. Its per unit is called. Then 10% ఇచ్చారు కాబట్టి మనం per unit కనుక్కోవాలంటే 10/100 that is equal to 0.10. That is the C is the answer. Next, 22. A generator has a 20% reactance to its per unit reactance equal to the per unit reactance is equal to 20/100. That is equal to 0.2 is the answer. Here B is the answer. 23rd. A transformer rating is 100 MVA, 220 bar 11 kV voltages. If base MVA is changed to 50 MVA, the new per unit reactance becomes. మనం ఇచ్చిన డేటా ప్రకారము 100 MVకి వచ్చేసి జెడ్ వోల్ట్ అనుకుంటే 50 MVకి వచ్చేసి జెడ్ న్యూ అనుకుంటే మనము జెడ్ న్యూ ఇజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు క్రాస్ మల్టిప్లికేషన్ చేస్తే జెడ్ న్యూ ఇజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు జెడ్ వోల్ట్ ఇంటూ 50 MVA by 100. Finally, answer is half of the original value. Fourth, a transformer has 0.08 per unit reactance. Change from 100 MVA base to the 200 MVA base. Here is the formula is 100 MVA కి వచ్చేసి 0.08 అయితే 200 కి ఎంత ఉంటుంది అన్నమాట. అది మనం వచ్చేసి క్రాస్ మల్టిప్లికేషన్ చేస్తే ఫైనల్ గా వచ్చేసి 0.16 is the answer. 25th, base MVA is kept constant, voltage base becomes twice, base impedance become. ఇప్పుడు వచ్చేసి బేస్ ఎంఈ వచ్చేసి కాన్స్టెంట్ బేస్ వోల్టేజ్ ఈజ్ twice. How much the value of base impedance? Here it is the formula is ZB is equal VB square by SB. So please substitute that one. Here is voltage is twice. So 2V whole square by SB. SB is constant. So 2V whole square. That means 4V square. So means 4 times. Here C is the answer. 26. Base voltage remain constant. Base MVA becomes double. Base impedance become. In previous problem, base MVA is kept constant. Base voltage is becomes twice. First in this problem, base voltage is remains constant. Base MVA becomes double. So what is the value of base impedance becomes? So here is the same formula. ZB is equal to square root of V square by SB. Here VB is constant. So ZB is inversely proportional to SB. So here is MVA is becomes double. Base impedance become half because it is both are in inversely proportional. So B is the answer. Base current varies directly with the base MVA because IB is equal to SB by VB square into root 3. So VB is directly proportional to SB. So here B is the answer. 28. Per unit system is essentially used in. Here is A is the answer for calculation of symmetrical faults, asymmetrical faults. So A is the answer. The biggest advantage of the per unit system is here in transformer transformation ratio eliminated for entire calculations. So it is a major advantage. So your answer is A. 30. A transmission line has an actual reactance of 40 ohms. Actual reactance is 40 ohms. If the base impedance is 80 ohms. So the per unit reactance is actually the formula is X per unit is equal to X actual by base impedance. Substitute in that formula, answer is 0.5. Here B is the answer. First, a generator has a reactance of 0.25 per unit on 100 MVA base. 100 MVA reactance on 200 MVA base. Here is voltage is same. So here is formula is 100 is equal to 0.25, 200 is equal X. So X is equal to X volt by 200 in by 100. So in above values in equation, you get 0.5 is the answer. Here C is the answer. 32. A transformer has 8% impedance. Its per unit impedance is, actually formula is, all of you know that, percentage given, that value divided by 100. So 8 by 100 is called 0.08. Here A is the answer. 33. If both actual impedance and base impedance are double, then the per unit impedance becomes, both are double. Actually per unit impedance is equal to actual value by base impedance, base value. So both are double, that is equal to 1 is the answer. That is unchanged. Here C is the answer. The per unit system is mainly used because the transformation turns ratio is not required for repeated calculations. So here B is the answer. 35th. The base power is 50 MVA and base voltage is 130 kV. The base impedance is approximately. Here all of you given base kV is a base impedance. That is called P is equal to P square by Z is the formula. Here 48.4 ohms is the answer. 36. 220 kV 100 MVA system has an actual voltage of 242 kV. The per unit voltage is, here actual voltage is 240 kV, the base voltage is 220 kV. Per unit voltage. Per unit voltage is actual value by base value. Here 242 by 220. That is called 1.10 is the answer. Here C is the answer. 37. If the base MVA is double while voltage base remains constant. Here voltage is base voltage is constant. Here MVA is double. The base current becomes, base current formula is, base current is equal to the base power by root 3 into base voltage. So substitute in our equation, we will get the double. So both are in directly proportional. So base MVA is double. Here base current is also double. 38. A transformer has 12% reactance. It expressed in per unit. Per unit is equal to the percentage divided by 100. So 12 by 100, that is equal to 0.12. Here B is the answer. 9. A power system has a base of 100 MVA and 130 kV. Base impedance is equal to V square by SB. That is 132 whole square divided by 100. So answer is 174.24. Here B is the answer. Question number 40. A transmission line has an impedance of 34.8 ohms. If the base impedance is 174 ohms, the per unit impedance is approximately. So all of you know that per unit value is equal to actual value by base value. Substituting above equation, you will get 0.2 is the answer. Here B is the answer. 41. A 20 MVA 11 kV generator has a reactance of 10%. Convert it to 100 MVA base. Voltage is constant. So here 20 MVA is equal to 10%. 100 MVA is equal to some X value. In cross multiplication, you will get 0.50 per unit is the answer. Here C is the answer. 2. This is very important question. If both the base voltage and base MVA are double, if the base impedance becomes, here ZB is called square of base voltage by base power. Here both are in double. Here voltage is square. So square means some double is cancelled, another double is there. So here B is the answer. 43. A transformer has 8% impedance. Its per unit impedance is 8 by 100, that is equal to 0.08. Here B is the answer. 44. In the per unit system, the voltage base on the secondary side of a transformer is selected according to the transformer turns ratio. Here C is the answer. Because the voltage base changes according to the transformer turns ratio. So that per unit values remains constant. 45. Which of the following quantities generally has the same per unit values on the both side of a transformer? Here is both side is same value is per unit impedance. Here C is the answer. 46. The greatest benefit of the per unit system in fault calculation is it simplifies calculates involving transformer of different ratings. The different ratings transformer is easily compared and calculated. So here C is the answer. 47. A per unit value greater than the 1.0 indicates that the actual quantity is. Here per unit value is actual value by base value. So per unit value is greater than 1. So here is actual value is more than the base value. So here C is the answer. Than 1 means actual value is less than the base value. Okay, next 48. The per unit system is preferred in power system studies because 48. The per unit system is preferred in power system studies because it gives the dimensions quantities and simplifies network analysis and fault analysis, etc. So here B is the answer. Thank you friends. ఈ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ వచ్చితే లైక్ చేయండి. ఎవరైతే పూర్ పీపుల్స్ ఉంటారో కోచింగ్ తీసుకోలేని పరిస్థితులు ఉంటారో వాళ్ళకి ఈ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఫార్వర్డ్ చేయండి. అలాగే బిజీగా ఉండే పీపుల్స్కు ఫార్వర్డ్ చేయండి. ఇలాంటి కంటెంట్ కోసం నా ఛానల్ తప్పకుండా సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేయండి. థ్యాంక్ యూ ఫ్రెండ్స్.